protecting homes and businesses from the whims of nature, you need more than just quality materials. You require Riverland Roofing. Licensed, insured, and certified, Riverland Roofing offers not only the assurance of excellence, but a tailored approach to your unique structural needs and budget. To learn more about what Riverland Roofing can do for you and the community, call them at 662-644-4297 or visit riverlandroofing.com.
You're listening to Talk of Champions, an Ole Miss Spirit podcast with Ben Garrett.
It's time! It's time! It's time! It's time! It's time!
Welcome in to an all-new edition of Talk of Champions on this Monday, November 4th, 2024. Familiar face joining me today is baby bro, Sudu Upadhyay, and he covers Georgia, not Ole Miss, Georgia these days because he's all grown up. Hey, buddy, what's up?
What's up, dude? How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you? You look good.
I'm well. It is a bit of an overcast, rainy day here in Atlanta, but I have a feeling things are going to look pretty good this weekend in the Grove.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild one. Probably the game of games of the modern era, at least. Like, look, me and Sue were there together in 2014 when Ole Miss beat Alabama, and that felt like the biggest game of the modern era. But this one, with the playoff ramifications, everything that goes along with it, we're going to dive all into it. But first and foremost, man, tell the people that hadn't seen you in a while how they can follow your stuff, see what you're up to. Now, they're not going to love it because it's Sudu talking about Georgia.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
I still have a lot of people that reach out, DM, and all kinds of stuff from the Ole Miss Spirit who every few months or so I'll get one or two people that are like, "We're just so proud of you. We always knew you would, so always love the Spirit family there." I'm in Atlanta, working for Fox 5 here and covering Georgia. That's my kind of main beat. I'm the Georgia guy for Fox. So yeah, if you do follow me and you're an Ole Miss person, you've probably muted me at some point because you're just seeing a lot of Georgia Bulldogs content, and that's the name of the game. That's how you make your money.
I unmuted you this week so that I could hit you up and because usually he's just Georgian. And I did like your Halloween outfit though. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yes, sir. Rick Dalton.
See, but I have 12 and 8-year-old daughters, and they wanted to go as their favorite Pixar characters, which was Inside Out. And Honey and I didn't have anything, but we just throw on whatever Halloween gear we could find because we're old people. We don't do the dressing up no more. We ain't got the aura, the swag that you do, my friend. You were pulling it off, though.
What did you go as?
Just like I was wearing a Halloween shirt with Halloween pumpkin light up thing, Halloween pumpkin. It's all kind of crap that you've collected over, my 12 years now, dad life in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was no rhyme or reason, but we passed. I saw your Halloween and saw my Halloween. They're very different things. You know what I mean? They're very different things. Like you're also trying to look good while you're Halloween. And you want to have a good, but you want, maybe a nice lady to look at you and go, "Oh, he's pretty cute." Me, I'm just trying to make sure my girls get hooked up with as much candy as possible.
Yeah, well, there was money involved too. The Halloween party I went to, there was a prize, right? And so I had wanted to. So a couple of years ago, when I worked for WWE, we had a big Halloween party after a show, and I wanted to go as Rick Dalton then. So I had ordered a couple pieces, but the main piece, which is the jacket, it's the thing that brings it all together, never came in on time. So I had this stacked away. I did go as a charcuterie board, man. Phenomenal decision, let me tell you. The amount of pictures these WWE superstars, not divas anymore, superstars took with me.
We're not using that regressive language ever again.
We are not. And you know what? They didn't even call them that when I was there. So I don't even know why I'm going back to my 10-year-old WWE days. But I had so many people coming to take pictures. It was a phenomenal idea to go as a charcuterie board. But I always had that Rick Dalton thing just sitting in the closet. So this year, I was like, this is the year. One of my buddies went as Cliff Booth. We had the whole thing figured out. It was we did not win the costume thing. It was somebody who was the deer in headlights, which it was the guy was a deer. The girl had lights on her chest and had a Jeep that, but
I've seen that one before. I've also seen the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I really thought that you might go crazy with it. There's so many ideas that I have for you and I, if we were to ever dress up together, and we were together for so long, and yet we never did anything. So if there's ever a reunion around Halloween time, ask me off there because most of them are terribly stupid and inappropriate, but funny nonetheless. And that's what we're going
Well,
for.
I'll tell you this, and I don't know, you may have to cut this out. I really don't know, but I went the previous weekend. I just had to throw something together. Found a robe, right? We went to a costume shop. We found a robe. I went as, I guess, Hugh Hefner. Like, you're not even Hugh Hefner, really. You got the robe on, whatever. And then people are DMing me like, "Yo, is this okay?" Like, whatever. I didn't really know about any sort of problematic things in Hugh Hefner's background. But yeah, man, I was like, "Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm the ignorant one. That's on me."
Or just say I am Sudu who just got out of the shower, and you'd have been fine.
Yeah, I think I came up with a Nepalese sounding name with Hugh. Like, I kept telling people, I'm like, "No, I'm Hugh Vinder Hefner." Okay, like there's a difference here.
Good.
Like,
yeah.
But yeah, I didn't know a bit about this. So
my man knows how to pivot. That's one thing I've always known about him. He knows how to pivot and get out of sticky situations. It's Ole Miss Georgia week. Ole Miss, as I look at the ESPN prediction percentage, Ole Miss has like a 53% chance of winning.
That is a terrible thing. We used to have Bama Respect Week when I was in school. Okay. When Nick Saban was at Alabama, you had Bama Respect Week. You gave them no bulletin board material. Anything positive said about Ole Miss in relation to that playing Alabama was viewed as, "No, we don't want it. We're terrible. We can't play football." That's what you need against Georgia, man. You know what happened the last time Kirby Smart's team got counted out? I was there. This was 3 weeks ago in Austin, Texas.
Don't even add this.
They obliterated them, bro.
I agree.
This is a thing with Kirby. The man he's insane. I love covering him. I think he's hilarious because he's just the dude, and he doesn't try to act like he's anything above just a guy.
He likes ball.
He likes ball. He's not gonna be holier than thou and then do sketchy stuff. No shots thrown at anybody there in particular. I'm just saying he's not gonna say stuff and then not live that kind of life. He lives what he says, So, and he defends his quarterback, maybe to a fault sometimes. But my point is, you don't give Kirby Smart anything to motivate his team extra, and that's tough. You don't want that because Georgia fans are they're loving it. They're loving the Ole Miss love. They're like, "Oh, we're just not even going to score a touchdown. Why should we even go? We shouldn't even go to Oxford. Let's just give them a win."
No one is doing this. Only Georgia does this. Now, you as a media person for Georgia,
that's what
y'all just create these narratives in your mind.
I'm not creating anything.
That Georgia is getting mistreated. No one's doing that. I was going to say that Ole Miss, according to ESPN, is at 53.9% to 46.1%, which is just a pick 'em because they're the home team. I disagree.
All they need is this, Ben.
That's
all they
fine.
Need is this
if they need to motivate themselves because a charmed existence is something that Ole Miss hasn't gotten to enjoy ever. Georgia's gotten to enjoy it for a long time now. I will simply say, no one's counting out Georgia. That's absurd. But ESPN's got that. It's a pick 'em is what I was getting to. And this time last year when I had you on and Ole Miss fans were excited and trying to fire themselves up to go to Athens, I showed up in Athens. You and I had a nice little reunion there, took a little video. I didn't pick Ole Miss to win that game. It's hard for me to pick Ole Miss this weekend. I don't know where I am on it. I don't do picking games anyway. But this is a little bit different, I would think, from your perspective as far as what Georgia is, what Ole Miss is. It doesn't feel like, hey, Ben, that's, Ole Miss is a nice, fun story like it was last year, but they're about to get the brakes blown off them. Tell me what Sudu's take on or setting the stage for Ole Miss Georgia is. I'm not asking for bulletin board material. I'm just asking for your thoughts, you idiot.
No, I know. I wasn't, this was nothing on you. I'm just saying, the ESPN.
He's trying to help Kirby out.
The FBI thing, it's like, come on, really? But last year I didn't want to come on the podcast because I was like, Ben, these people are going to hate me because I have absolutely nothing positive I can give them. And really, last year Georgia was the best team in college football. They didn't get in the playoff. They ended up not winning the national title, but they were, right? And it was so obvious that they could not match up. Ole Miss could not match up to them in the things that Lane Kiffin talked about after the game, the line of scrimmage. That really ended up deciding the game. This year, there's hope. There's actually a little bit of hope, right? It's still the number 2 team in the country coming into town. If Ole Miss pulls out those games against LSU and Kentucky and just doesn't play really stupid football at certain points of the season, I'm sitting here going, oh my God, I think they can actually do this. I think they're going to pull this off. There were moments at the end of that Kentucky game. I didn't like what I saw from Jaxson Dart. There's been lulls during the season where I haven't liked whatever the heck Kiffin or Weiss, I don't know who's calling plays, what's happening, what was going on with them. I'm watching this stuff. I don't get to watch it in person live, but I always come home and I'll rewatch all these games. What the hell are we doing? What is this stuff? You know more than anything. Kiffin will know more than me about football ever. I'll never catch up. It's not even going to be possible. But even as a fan, I'm watching some stuff. I'm like, what is this? What are we doing? So things like that have sort of clouded my opinion on what Ole Miss's ceiling is this season. And obviously, if you can't pull out games you're supposed to win, that's concerning. With that being said, if Ole Miss can protect Jaxson Dart, which is a tough task against Georgia, it's a very tough task against Georgia because there's 11 and 13 coming, and it's not going to be pretty. So if they can protect him and he can move around the pocket, you can actually attack the secondary. They're not what they were a year ago. Last year, they had Kamari Lassiter, an NFL starter, Javon Bullard, who has started multiple games for the Packers, Tyke Smith, who has started for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this season. Three of their biggest leaders on defense, all playing in the secondary. They're gone. And it shows. They still have a two-time All-American safety in Malachi Starks back there who, I think he can't be a true safety at all times and has to be a little more versatile because of some of the deficiencies at the cornerback spots for Georgia. Now, with that being said, they give up a bunch of yards to Mississippi State. Van Buren, a true freshman quarterback at home, Jeff Lebby in the second half, that had people really concerned going into Texas. Like, oh my God, if Jeff Lebby and Michael Van Buren are cooking the secondary, imagine what Quinn Ewers is going to do with Sark next week. Then they showed up against Texas on the road looking like the elite Georgia defense we expected to see. So it's a little questionable, but I still do believe that you can attack their cornerback spots. If you're Ole Miss, you better hope Trey Harris is out there too. I think if Trey is out there, you get what you got from a guy like Jordan Watkins last week. You can use your tight end position effectively. And I love Daquan Wright. I think he's awesome. But let's get pre-scoring the ball too, right?
Well, he was banged up last week, and also Trey was banged up too. I will say this: I'm
not criticizing them not using them last week. I'm just saying,
it's been good for Ole Miss in an offense that appeared broken to force the hand of the offensive staff of Jaxson Dart to try to get other guys involved without him, because the Kentucky loss, most inexplicable to me, was the fact that they ran half the plays that they usually get and forced 15 balls to Trey Harris because they couldn't come up with anything when you have the greatest collection of skill player talent in Ole Miss modern day history, I would argue. Now, the offensive line, you're absolutely right, it's been a struggle. And that was the big narrative going in and coming out of Georgia last year. Ole Miss didn't match up along the lines of scrimmage. And that was the whole focus. The Georgia game was the focus. All the motivation Ole Miss needed to go and get Walter Nolan and Princely Umanmielen, who are both shooting up draft boards. They're both
they fixed the defensive side for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But the offensive side is they didn't fix it. I mean, it's the biggest issue, the offensive line. Yeah. But for a defense ranked number one in the country in sacks with 41, went into last week in number one in scoring defense. Obviously, that's not the same anymore. They gave up 31 to Arkansas. On and on it goes. This is a defense that has played championship caliber football the entire year, even with an offense that is broken. And I look at Carson Beck, who's thrown multiple interceptions in 4 out of his last 5 games. And I say defensively is where, if you're an Ole Miss fan, you can get, you can generate some confidence because you can think that defense is matched up with everybody. It's been the same all year, championship caliber, the best in the country, and they're only ascending and getting better. But offensively, that's my whole sticking point when I'm trying to figure out Ole Miss Georgia. Is like, I've seen that offensive line all year. And yeah, last week it was better. They only gave up 1 sack. It was an awful sack, but 1 sack. And they did a few things better. I mean, scored a bunch of points, and Jaxson Dart was on fire. He was also throwing to wide open receivers, and the running game was non-existent. So a good plan for 1 week. Can you give me another one for Georgia when you're not going to be able – there are a lot of things on the offensive side that are stacked against Ole Miss. But I think defensively – yeah, this team's absolutely. I mean, that's the pick 'em is Ole Miss defensively against Georgia offensively. I mean, you're seeing
who thought we'd see a Golding versus Schumann Kirby showdown in Oxford, right?
That's
like
what
it's
I'm
insane.
saying.
But for also with Ole Miss's defense, which you're right, man, the defensive line. I think I tweeted this out a few weeks ago, and a couple of people kind of tried to respond. But like, is this the greatest defensive line we've seen? I know, like 2008, there were some, there's some good, the Greg Hardys of the world.
Listen, I know you better than anybody. Don't recency bias this. I had the same conversation on this podcast by myself. Yeah. I do think it's the best defensive line, but we can't forget Greg Hardy.
2008 and 2014 are,
I mean, Paray was a first rounder. Greg played multiple years in the pros. Kentrell Lockett, Marcus Tillman, Jarrell Poe. Those were some dudes. This group is better. This group is better. And
this group's just, the numbers are there with this group, right? Because you had the Marquise Haynes year with Breland Speaks and Robert Kimdichie. You had like big names.
Group is better.
This group is way better. Yeah. 100%. I think the edge rushers on this group are just game changers, and obviously Walter Nolan is who he is.
And Taryn Perkins, our guy, he's
I like that guy, man, and he's a high school kid we got, right? So that's a good deal.
I love hearing you I love how it's just we and us, and now like every time I talk to you, because he doesn't cover Ole Miss anymore, she's like, dude, I'm watching this. I'm like, what are we doing? It's hilarious. I love it.
Well, yeah, of course, it always is going to be, and I work with the most Georgia Bulldog people. I mean, one of my best friends and coworkers and show hosts is DJ Shockley, who played quarterback there. So many other people that are connected to Georgia or Kirby Smart in some way or the other. They love giving me crap. It's every week it's something, and they're like, well, you're basically a dog now, right? You're a dog now, and I always tell them, I say, look, Georgia's it's the Ole Miss of the East, right? Ole Miss is the Georgia of the West. That's what they said about Athens and Oxford for years. So
at least
there was no beef
from a party angle. Yeah, I mean,
100%.
Like
Oxford, yeah, Athens is Oxford of the East. Ole Miss is Athens of the West, or whatever you want to call it. But I was like, there was no beef with Georgia and Ole Miss. Like I remember Georgia playing Ole Miss when Edo was there. It was like I remember it was a close game, and Mark Richt's team ended up running away with it. I remember in 2016, the only time Kirby's been to Oxford, Freeze beat him there. And that's kind of it, man. There's really no beef or any kind of rivalry there. So I really have no problem like with the job that I do. There's no like, oh man, whatever. Like I have a good time. They have a good time here. It reminds me a lot of what goes down in Oxford. So, there's, and they understand. They know I'm from there too. It's like, I'm not only went to Ole Miss, I'm from Oxford. Like it's just it's a part of who I am. It's just never going to go away,
In this matchup, unlike last year's matchup, you actually have some pause where you can actually be honest and say, yeah, Ole Miss could take advantage of what, right? Because last year you tried to be nice. You tried to, be fair, but also you really were trying to guard against hurting feelings. And
I wanted to say, guys, we're going to get our ass rocked. It's going to be ugly in Athens. That's really what I wanted to say a year ago. I don't have to say that this year, so I can be honest about last year. I just wanted to come on and say, Ben, we don't even have to talk about this. Ole Miss has no shot. I was going to tell people to put all their money on Georgia, whatever the money line was, and you're going to make a lot of money. You know what I mean? That's what I wanted to say. This year, I can't say that. The concern for me with Ole Miss, the secondary. I love the linebackers. I love the defensive line. The secondary, outside of Trey Amos, I don't see a lot going on there.
I disagree.
And that's
okay.
That's just how I feel, man.
Field corner has been a problem opposite the boundary of Trey Amos, but the safeties have been rock solid. Now they do give up some big plays because they play mostly man. But yeah, I agree with you. But what can Georgia do vertically to challenge Ole Miss for those who maybe haven't watched a lot of Georgia this year?
Well, so the biggest thing, Georgia, they've got speed. They have received. It's not going to be Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers, and that's the issue. Like those two being gone, there's this narrative amongst some people in the Georgia fan base that Carson Beck, what changed from this year to last year? Well, clearly it's because he's dating a Cavender twin. That's what it is. He's got to break up with the Cavender twin. It's her. No, he lost 84-19. That's the biggest difference. There's no more safety blanket with Brock Bowers, and you don't have this. I don't know how to describe Ladd McConkey. I've never seen a player play that good laterally and just be as shifty as he is. That's the biggest issue. But they do have a guy in Arian Smith who's a speedster, man. That dude can beat anybody. Problem is, he does have a tendency of dropping some footballs every now and then. So if you're Ole Miss, you want that to show up, right? Dylan Bell, number 86, is like an offensive weapon that does everything. Out of the backfield, catches passes. He's even thrown a touchdown since I've been covering him. And then, one of their guys that they were really going to count on this year got suspended. And he hasn't played since he got suspended, and Colby Young. So they have some options. It's not the same options from a year ago. And I think that's why Carson Beck tries to force it sometimes, because early in games, the receivers might drop a ball or two here, or someone may not run the right route. And then Carson Beck gets in his head and goes, well, I have to be the one in this game now. And he starts playing kind of outside of Bobo's offense, which is very obviously it's not as exciting as some of the other offenses, right? It's very much, we're going to run the football and you're going to take what the defense gives you. And if Beck doesn't do that, then yes, Ole Miss 100% has a shot of turning the ball over, as we've seen. 11 interceptions in 5 games for Carson Beck. And this is a guy who does everything very well. Like, as far as putting his team in positions, like checking things, audibling, all of that stuff. He's so good at it, and that's what made him such an NFL draft darling coming into the season, not just the completion percentage and all that, but what he's doing before the ball's even snapped. And he still will make mistakes, but then when it matters, like the other day at Florida, 11 straight completions, touchdown drives based on his work, his throws, that's still a thing. But if you're Ole Miss, what you got to do is you got to sack them, man. You got to get back there. This offensive line isn't as good as we thought it was going to be this year, too. Georgia's offensive line. You literally have to pressure him and make sure you're in his face all day and he's hitting the ground all day. They're also not the same team as far as being able to run the football anymore. Last year, they had two really solid running backs, as Ole Miss remembers, I'm sure, with Kendall Milton and Dejon Edwards, that you could give them the football and you knew they were probably going to get 5-6 yards a carry. Trevor Etienne hasn't really been able to do that. I think some of that is run blocking. He also got banged up against Florida. Their kind of real true backup now is Nate Frazier, a true freshman who is phenomenal, but he's still a true freshman. And after that, you have Cash Jones, a former walk-on and whatever. So it's just not the same Georgia. They just don't have the same horses they did a year ago, but you have to make sure that the number one thing you have to do is make sure Carson Beck all game is just suffocated with pressure, which they can do. If Ivy, Uman and Nolan are healthy, we've seen it all year. They can get to them. And you can't have lapses like you did against LSU. Like if the opposing team's best receiver is in motion, Trey Amos better be trailing him, bro. That's all I know. Okay, I don't want to see Trey Amos not trailing the best receiver, because I said it, dude. The minute Kyron Lacey took the motion and Trey Amos stayed on his side of the field, I looked at my friends and I said, "This is a touchdown. Almost about to lose this game." Touchdown, buddy. I don't even remember who that was on his head. It was not a good deal. Against Georgia,
I was in Orlando with some friends.
Yeah,
and me and my buddy producer Flip, he did the math, dude. It should have been a 45-16 win for Ole Miss that day.
Yes, 100%.
Like, so, like, for me, you're
Jaxson
right.
Dart can throw a football the way he did against Arkansas, against LSU. They win that game easily. Same thing with Kentucky. Same thing with Kentucky.
Because his last two SEC starts for Jaxson Dart, he's completed 78% of his passes, 826 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, no turnovers, 15 yards per completion. He's number one in the SEC in passing yards with 3,210. Carson Beck is third with 2,302. So it's pretty much what I thought it was going into this game. These are, I don't know who's, I would say Georgia's probably overall a better team, but my point is like
more talent, sure.
More talent. But when you talk about all 22s, they're pretty comparable this year. Not last year, it was more of a, you wanted it, but it wasn't there. You know what I mean? It still wasn't there. And I would argue that Ole Miss and Georgia this year are very much like each other. But Ole Miss can't run the ball effectively right now, which could hurt, especially if those big plays aren't hit like they weren't against Kentucky and LSU. You could see another 20-17 game, another, what was it, 29-26 game against LSU, a grimy game. That favors Georgia. But if the team that showed up against Arkansas and showed up against Oklahoma in the second half, this last 7 or 6 quarters, shows up against Georgia, that team is one of the best teams, if not the best team in a college football landscape. That's a lot of pretty good but not great, all flawed teams. You know, it's not like Carson Beck and Georgia rolling in here like Ole Miss was rolling into there last year, go as far and away, clear-cut, the best team in college football. Now they're kind of falling back to the pack. That's the culture we live in now. Not that Georgia isn't awesome. They're very good. Could come in here and boat race Ole Miss if Ole Miss plays like it did against Kentucky and LSU. Well, not with that defense. So they didn't even get boat raced in their losses because the defense, again, has played at a championship caliber level. And
they should be undefeated.
They should be undefeated. And I say they should be 7-1. It should be a matchup of 2-7 or 8-1, 2 one-loss teams this weekend, because you don't get to play as crappy as they did in those 2 losses and not get kind of like, oh, you should be – no. That Kentucky loss is going to go down. I'll get this from you. I haven't talked to you in a while. I said this on the pod last week. Kentucky, that loss to Kentucky is worse than 4th and 25 ever was.
Yeah. Yeah, because Brock Vandegrift hit one of the most beautiful deep balls I've seen.
But it's worse.
I didn't even know that he was capable of doing that.
Yeah, he's not. He hadn't done it since. But the point is like that loss and what it meant is way worse than the flukiness of 4th and 25. This game is just a matter of, has the offense that we thought was broken truly discovered itself as it has the last 6 quarters? And if it is, well, then I'm picking Ole Miss in that game at home in a pick 'em, but we just don't know. It's a wait and see, and the offensive line is still a problem. They had their issues even in a historic day or an historic win against Arkansas over the weekend. So I don't know, but you convinced me that I'm not crazy in thinking that this is a true pick 'em, and that is not bulletin board material, sir.
Yeah,
don't go running it to Kirby.
I mean, Kirby knows what he's got in his team, right? And he knows that it's not the same that he's had in years past. It's definitely not the team from a year ago. He knows that. The other part of this is like Kiffin, bro, like you got to get a big win at some point, not just at Ole Miss, but in your career. Like you need to be able to beat somebody like a Kirby Smart at some point. This is the best setup he's had, in my opinion. You're at home. This isn't the same Georgia team it's been in the past. This is do or die for you and your team. What are you going to come up with? What are you going to come up with against the best defensive mind in college football? What are you going to do? I mean, that's really the true test and key here. And I don't know how involved Charlie Weiss is. Like, I've heard all kinds of stuff about, well, it's really Kiffin, oh, it's Weiss, whatever. But him as well, because he hasn't had a great season, and yeah, people are calling for him to be fired, right? So, like, what can you come up with? What can you cook up? You know, you're supposed to be Bull Wonder or whatever.
Arkansas, I mean, like, and that's one thing Lane Kiffin made mention of in the post game is Charlie Weiss deserves a lot of credit. At the end of the day, it's a collaborative effort. I've said this multiple times. Charlie does call the plays. The first, I think, 20 some odd plays are scripted, and obviously Lane has final say on whatever gets called into the huddle eventually. And there are times he's taken over the game script himself, and it hadn't gone well either. At the end of the day, whether it's Charlie, whether it's Lane was hired to be what? The offensive guru.
Offensive guru, right?
Yes. So if it ain't working, it ultimately lays at the feet of Lane Kiffin, because Ole Miss going into last weekend had the number 2 ranked special teams according to S&P Plus. It had the number 1 ranked scoring defense, and now number 1 in sacks with 41 sacks on the year. What you and I agree is probably, no, not probably, let's just say it, it's the best defensive line Ole Miss has assembled in the modern era. They're playing like that to potential top 2 round picks, and Walter Nolan and Princely Umanmiele, and Jared Ivey is their highest graded defender this year. He's worked his way into a top 3 round grade as well. Some Taryn Perkins has taken the star turn. Where Sudu tried to say, guys, Ole Miss isn't equipped last year. It is on the defensive side, and only through 100%. 6 quarters so far.
And don't forget about our boy Chris Poop Hall now. Ben, come on.
Awesome. See, here's the one thing. I'm so glad you brought this up, because I would have totally forgotten. Because me and Sudu, when he was working with me at the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com, affiliate of On 3, it's here in the Riverland Roofing Studios. Y'all give some love to Riverland. They're doing some crazy great things for Ole Miss right now. RiverlandRoofing.com, 662-644-4297 for all your roofing needs. But we were talking about this. Is you were part of the oldest joke. It was like, dude, but Ben, can he play linebacker? You know what I mean? Hey, Sue, I think they're going to get like a 4-star running back from so. Yeah, but can he play linebacker? And they finally got a guy who can play linebacker, right? Yeah. Not that DeMarcus Gates wasn't great. Not that C.J. Johnson, when healthy, wasn't great. Right. What you're seeing this year is the first, like, true, pure, he's a linebacker. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he's doing the thing. So, yeah, I thought about you not too long ago. I was like, I was making the joke. We always used to make the joke about, but can so-and-so play linebacker? Ole Miss can't ever find a linebacker. Why can't they just sign a 4-star linebacker? If I bring up the name Leo Lewis, everyone has PTSD. You know what I mean? So the point is, your guy, we finally got you one, Sue.
Yeah,
Chris Poop, he can play
linebacker finally. Hey, shout out the transfer portal, man. Really changing the game.
Well, that's what has allowed Ole Miss to be in this place now going into Georgia, to where they can honestly say this time around, sure, but can that offense really step up? What about injury concerns? I know ETN was banged up. Anything like that for Georgia?
Yeah, ETN's banged up. They're one of their best offensive linemen, Tate Ratledge, finally came back against Florida. 2 knee braces. There were times I haven't really confirmed this yet, but there were times where I would look at him and he kind of looked a little gimpy, like, oh, is he limping around a little bit? Whatever. They have been, and their center Jared Wilson was injured earlier in the season. I think there's all those wear and tear injuries, obviously, as far as the offensive line and defensive line is concerned. But outside of ETN, we still need an update on him. I think they're fine. I mean, they're kind of second string running back. Branson Robinson's been out for a couple weeks now.
Oh, that's a recruiting name that just still hits.
Branson, of course, yeah, that's right. And it's been so bad for him, man. Like he's just been hurt time in and time out in his career at Georgia, and we finally thought, all right, he's going to be healthy and have a good season, and he got hurt again. But I'm trying to think. I mean, defensively, I think they're pretty healthy now. Mykel Williams, who's projected top 10 edge rusher coming into the season, he's back full force, good to go. Jalen Walker, who was the guy that everybody talked about after the Texas game, he's good to go. Those 2 are the ones that worry me the most as far as Jaxson Dart. And
all right, you want your rapid fire questions to get you out of here?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. Because I'm just going to ramble forever if I'm talking to you. You know that.
Yeah, and I love that. That's why I got you on here. It's the easiest podcast I do every year. It's talking to Sue. You know, it's the best. All right. Yeah. The player that has to click for Ole Miss is who in this game?
Jaxson Dart. Like, you got to play your ass off, dude. You got to earn, you got to get, this has got to be I'm about to earn some money potentially at the next level. by beating
Heisman
Georgia.
candidacy game.
Huh?
Heisman candidacy game.
100%. I mean, his numbers are pretty dang good. Like, yeah, I mean, I don't think like between Cam Ward and Travis Hunter, I think like they're the national media darlings and they're going to always get the love and they are playing unbelievably well. But just to even be in that conversation late in the season, that would be awesome for him. But it has to be Dart and he has to be like perfect. Like, I don't want to see you underthrowing receivers like you did at LSU. I was, you know what? I was so sad. And I'm going off topic, but I'm going to do this anyways. I was really sad for Caden Lee in that game because Caden Lee was like a monster that game, dude. He was just
I want to give a shout out to Caden Lee. He's about to start doing a podcast with the Ole Miss Spirit, The Buzz with Caden Honeycomb Lee. So well done, my friend. You still know how to do the thing. Yeah.
I love that. Shout out Caden Lee. I was really sad for him. I'm like, that was such a great game for Caden Lee. He deserved a win and a game ball for that. And there were just throws that I was like, Jaxson, what are we doing, man? Like, what is? I know you're running around for your life, but you gotta perform. Like, I mean, it's sorry they didn't fix the offensive line the way they thought they did, but it's him, bro.
My pick to click for Ole Miss would need to be Diego Pounds if he's going to be the left tackle because
I've given up all hope on no offense to Diego Pounds. When Diego Pounds came in, I have friends that went to North Carolina who weren't worried, and Drake May was running for his life when Diego Pounds was there. No offense to Diego.
Jaden Williams might be back. He played a little bit against Arkansas, but I'm not picking on Diego. It's just that it's Diego. Reese McIntyre's had his issues. Julius Buelo's had his issues. I mean, there's across the board, that offensive line is the story. So I was going to do pick to click, pick any of the offensive linemen, Diego, Reese McIntyre. But you're right. At the end of the day, Jaxson Dart, if you give him 2.5 seconds of pocket time, he has options. He just can't be seeing ghosts out there. Your pick to click for Georgia, not named Carson Beck.
Pick to click for Georgia, not named Carson Beck. I think that has to be. I don't know if I should go offense or defense here, honestly.
The world is your oyster, my friend.
I know. Well, okay, I'll give you both. Offense, I think it's got to be Arian Smith. They're kind of their number one receiver. He's fast, and he can beat anybody, like anybody. He has to catch the ball. If he's open, like, you have to catch the football. If Carson gets the ball in your hands, you have to catch it in order for Georgia to win. I think Arian's going to have to be big in this game just because of his speed and how dynamic he is. He's always open. Like, he finds a way to get open at all times. So he has to be able to finish and catch it, which he's done recently. On defense, I think it's going to be Jalen Walker for me. He was a monster against Texas, and he sort of disappeared like against Florida. I think he had like 5 tackles. He had 1 fumble recovery. He's really a leader of that defense, and he does so much more than just what he does on the field. But I think he could absolutely just destroy Ole Miss's front and make Saturday a really bad day for Jaxson Dart. I just think he has to show up the way he did against Texas, which I think he's fully capable of doing.
A player that Ole Miss fans might not know about that could really, that they, at some point they go, wait, who is this guy and why does he keep torturing us? Who is that for Georgia?
For Georgia, once again, do I go offense? Do I go defense?
Go offense first.
Go offense
I don't even
first.
know who their tight end is because Brock Bowers is already the best tight end in the NFL now.
They have talented tight ends. Oscar Delp, highly rated coming out of high school, but there's a kid named Lawson Lucky, number 7. He is the closest thing to Bowers you could have gotten, I think. I mean, no one's going to be anything close. It's not what I'm insinuating here, but I'll go with Lawson Lucky or Nate Frazier, the true freshman running back. One of those two guys, I think, if they start popping off, don't be surprised. They're very talented, highly rated recruits. Nick Saban called Nate Frazier the best freshman running back in the country after the Clemson game at the beginning of the season, and talked about how much he wanted him when he was at Alabama. So, some people may have heard of him, but he's not a starter. So I'll go with him or Lawson Lucky, the tight end number 7.
The one area you, as the Georgia representative on Talk of Champions today in the Riverland Roofing Studios, the one area Ole Miss that keeps Georgia up at night for Ole Miss, like the one area that Ole Miss does really well. Is it the sacks? Is it that front? I mean, that offensive line. I think you touched on the offensive line versus Ole Miss.
It's that defensive front, dude. Yeah. I mean, if you're Carson Beck, you're freaking seeing this like, what the hell, bro? They're coming from everywhere. They're coming from like here, and then here, and then here. It's insane. Like the pass rush they've got. And hey, shout out Pete Golding, man. Like, remember Bama fans tried to tell us that he was a bum, that he was a Saban merchant, he's never going to be good, and they wanted him out of there. I mean, there is a world, right, where he could potentially be the next Ole Miss head coach. Like, good for him. And just as much of an important game for him. Could be a big audition moment for him if things change.
If what, Sudu? What are
If
you
things were to change,
insinuating, sir?
if there's a job were to open up in Oxford, maybe potentially,
No, see what's going to happen is Ole Miss is going to beat Georgia this weekend.
Yeah.
Run the table, make it to the playoff, and all things forgotten as long as you win. Because again, Kentucky, I can get.
Every Florida fan I met tried to tell me that Kiffin is going to come to Florida. It's already done. He'd be crazy not to, and he would even leave in the middle of a playoff.
That's what they said at Auburn.
Run.
That's what they said at LSU. That's what they've said. You want to have a real conversation about this? We can, because it's more than just Florida's Florida. Y'all got to understand something. All right, but no, see, I'm not going down this rabbit hole. We'll do this off the air. I'll just simply say, I agree with you that if Lane were to leave, which has been a possibility every year he's been here, no one expected it to be 5 years. I think Ole Miss would move quickly and be just fine finding a good head coach to keep the train rolling.
Quickly, what are your thoughts on?
Ole Miss no longer is dependent upon a cult of personality for its head coach.
Let me ask you this quickly. Let's just we're going to not spend more than a minute on this.
Okay.
Do you think that there's ever a world in which Lane Kiffin leaves and John Summerall comes to Ole Miss?
No.
No? Okay.
I like John Summerall.
I like him a lot.
I like John Summerall, but Ole Miss is in a place now where I love John Summerall. Yeah. Why wouldn't you go talk to whoever is at the top of the list of all the schools? Are like, oh, let's go get so-and-so. You know what I mean?
Well, because I think Auburn likes him, and I know that obviously he's a Kentucky guy, so Kentucky fans are kind of
like a guy. He coached at Troy. I think that's why are we talking about this Georgia week? No,
I don't know. It's just look. I like John Summerall. Anyways, let's continue.
Too.
Rapid fire.
I do too. I don't even remember my other rapid fires. I do too. Point is, I don't think Lane is going anywhere. Of course, Florida fans say that, but they also can't appreciate the fact that Billy Jacobs is actually doing pretty good this year.
Now the tide is turning a little bit, because there were some Florida fans that were like, well, we were down this guy with a third-string Yale quarterback who's never played football.
DJ Lagway's going to be awesome. Hope he gets better. He's hurt, but that dude's a dude.
Yeah, I think if he's not there when Ole Miss goes down, that is a good thing for Ole Miss. I'll just say that much.
That game does kind of give me a little.
The Swamp is not a fun place to play, brother. The last time we were there, I flew on a private jet with Chuck and his buddy to Gainesville, feeling like the man. This is back when Futures dropped DS2. I'm listening to that. I'm like talking about private jets. And then what was the guy's name? Driscoll? I don't even know who the quarterback was.
Trask?
No, that wasn't Trask. No, you're thinking of COVID year 2020. I'm thinking of the last time we went to the Swamp where there were fans when I was in school.
Chad shit in the bed in 2017.
Yeah, that was the 1 year I'm talking about, 2016, 2017, whatever that was.
I also remember when 40 blocked the extra point, when Tim got to stop on a 4th down, when Tim Tebow cried. That's for next week. This week is Georgia. I'm not going to make you put a prediction out there, but all right, who wins?
I think Georgia still wins. And I'm not going to say Georgia's not going to win until I see Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss get a big win in his tenure. Like, not a bowl game against Penn State. I want to see it in the regular season against a top-level SEC opponent. You didn't beat Bama. You haven't beaten LSU in Death Valley. Or you didn't beat LSU in Death Valley, I should say, which would have been a massive win. This is it, bro. This is kind of it for you. Like, this is the big one. This is the big year. This is the year you hyped up and you told us these are the new expectations. Well, freaking do it. Figure it out.
One game. One time. Like they talked about, Kevin O'Shea. You ever watch Little Giants?
Please, yeah, of course.
Me. Okay. That one time going down Cherry. I said this last year, but
you said this last year. Yeah. You said this last year.
This year it's bad. This year it actually applies.
It does. And we said one game, it's like, yeah, it's still going to be tough. You still got to go to Florida. Mississippi State is always Mississippi State. It's going to get weird. But if you win this, it's a lot easier after that, right? It's like you're just not going to face another Georgia until the playoff. So you have to win this. Until Kiffin can produce a result like this in a big environment, I'm just going to go against him. I think Georgia still, with Kirby Smart, the talent they've got, and some of the deficiencies Ole Miss has, can take advantage of it. Someone asked me the other day, they were like, how do you think the VOT is going to play out? This is a Georgia person. They have no respect for the VOT, which I don't know what the crowd has been like this year. I know that there's some points of the season where I will say that I know the game day environment was getting a lot better. Like the last time I was at an Ole Miss game, the game day environment was incredible.
I think you'll be pretty shocked to see how much it's grown.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because I know we've been, drone shows and fireworks and all that kind of stuff is great. But what I said to them was, yes, I think Ole Miss can 100% make that a crazy environment to play in because they always show up for the big games. But I do believe Georgia, having gone to Texas, Alabama, and even Kentucky, which, by the way, dude, what the hell? I was in Lexington the whole weekend. I'm like, this is not an SEC school. Nobody's tailgating. Hours before kickoff, the campus just like everybody's strewn about and scattered about. And I discovered they just show up for the game. They were insane. It was I was shocked at how good that is.
They are about ball.
All about ball, apparently. And they almost beat Georgia, too. But those three environments, I think, having been in that, this team is like fully prepared for whatever Oxford's going to throw at them. That being said, this better be the biggest game in Ole Miss history. Like, you better show up and break every record, sound records, attendance records.
Sue, they broke the record for Middle Tennessee. They broke the record for Furman. They broke the record last week. And on and on. Oklahoma. You pick your game.
Show up early
all year. Just give them the results you promised them.
Yeah,
and that comes
that's what
Saturday
I'm saying.
against Georgia.
Team has to perform.
And this is the first time that I've heard Sudu actually admit that Ole Miss and Georgia are it's going to be a good game. More of a pick 'em than it's ever been. You know?
Yeah,
really.
It's not going to be. It doesn't appear to be a runaway. But if it is, it wouldn't surprise me. Nothing surprises me anymore. No. But as an objective football person that watches and covers football, if you look at the numbers and what we've seen, it's a more even matchup than it was a year ago. And especially coming off all the picks Carson Beck just threw, I think that's why a lot of Ole Miss fans are feeling good. It's like, oh God, if we can get to this guy, he might force some things and we might be in a good spot. And that's very true.
It's a championship caliber defense. It's been like that all year for Ole Miss. Number one in the SEC, in the nation, in sacks with 41. They coming. They'll have to get after Carson Beck this weekend. It's the game of games. It's the biggest game.
Stop the run too.
Even before losing two games, everybody said Georgia. That's the one. And fortunately for Ole Miss, the SEC is wide open. A lot of 2-loss teams, not very good, or just a bunch of pretty good, but no elite teams. This game still means the exact same as it did, even with 2 losses. You win this game, everything is in front of you, playoff berth, all those kind of things, but you have to win this game. You have to win it. You've backed yourself into that corner where you have no leeway. You're not 1-loss Ole Miss. You're 2-loss Ole Miss. 3-loss Ole Miss ain't making it into the playoffs. So get Georgia this weekend. Should be a hell of a game. Sudu will be in town. Are
we sitting next to each other? Can you tell Brad Sheffield to figure out the seating chart for me there?
Of course. Now, if
he's gonna put me in overflow somewhere outside the press box, and that I'm coming home, man.
Yeah, you're coming home. We got to take care of it. We'll figure it out. It's been Talk of Champions in the Riverland Roofing Studios. A little house up top, 662-644-4297 for all your roofing needs. It's Riverland Roofing, riverlandroofing.com. Go read and check up on Sudu all day, every day. Tell the people how they follow your stuff. I don't want to butcher anything.
Sure. So not a lot of reading going on. Nope. I basically yap for a living. Only Ben used to make me write stuff, and then he would just destroy me for how bad it was.
No, I would not.
But no, but we're not. We can't just have your pen, Ben. Okay, your ability to write, my ability to write, never been the same level. No, if anybody's ever interested or wants to check my stuff out, my Twitter at Sudu TV, Sudu_TV. I think Instagram at Sudu TV is fine. And if you guys are interested in Georgia sports, you can always download the Fox Local app on your iPhone or streaming device. Choose Atlanta as your market, and you can watch all of the great content we create over there. Not just me, but my beautiful coworkers and friends. I have a feeling nobody will do that, but just a shameless plug right there.
Don't ever, if you ever wonder who's still family, you're home, baby. You came home, you talked to me, and I guarantee you somebody out there. I know I've already got like some listeners that were excited just because they knew you were coming on because they've been listening to us since 2015.
Yeah,
almost 10 years.
No, shoot, man, 2014.
Yeah. So it has been a decade. A decade of talking to baby bro, and look at him. He's all dressed up with a nice quarter zip. It's fall season for you.
It is. This is not.
That's true.
Yeah, this is the cozy fit right now.
North Face, even though it's 80 degrees outside. Is
it really, dude? It is. It's kind of it's low key chilly here.
Well, good. Today. Maybe I need to walk outside. Maybe it's gotten chilly. Hopefully it has. My friend Sudu Upadhyay, you're the man, my friend. I look forward to seeing you when you get into Oxford this weekend.
See you in Oxford, buddy. I'll see you in the Grove too.
Look at all the balloons. Did you see your balloons?
Yeah, what was that about?
I don't know. You had thumbs up and balloons. What a way to end it. Bye.
What was that? See you, dude.